Sophie loved visiting her grandmother. Every weekend, she would eagerly wait for the moment when she could step into her grandmother's magical garden. It was a place where her imagination could run wild, and every visit felt like a new adventure waiting to unfold. Her grandmother had a big, beautiful garden. It was not just any garden, it was a sanctuary of nature's wonders. The garden was meticulously cared for, with each plant and flower lovingly tended to by her grandmother's gentle hands. It was full of colorful flowers and tall green trees. The flowers bloomed in a riot of colors, from the deepest reds to the brightest yellows, creating a vibrant tapestry that delighted the senses. The tall trees stood like guardians, their leaves whispering secrets to those who would listen.
"I love playing in the garden," Sophie would exclaim with joy, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The garden was her playground, a place where she could be free and happy.
She would run through the trees and smell the pretty flowers. Each flower had its own unique fragrance, and Sophie loved to close her eyes and breathe in the sweet scents, imagining herself in a world of fairies and magic. Sometimes she would even pretend to be a brave explorer, discovering new lands. With her pretend explorer hat on, she would embark on grand adventures, mapping out the garden and uncovering hidden treasures among the plants and flowers. One sunny afternoon, Sophie was playing hide-and-seek with her grandmother. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over the garden, and the air was filled with the sounds of birds chirping and leaves rustling. She was looking for the perfect hiding spot. The garden was full of nooks and crannies, each one a potential hiding place. Sophie knew she had to find a spot where her grandmother would never think to look.
"Where could I go?" Sophie thought, her mind racing with possibilities. Should she hide behind the big oak tree, or maybe in the rose bushes? Each option seemed better than the last.
Sophie wondered, looking around the garden. Her eyes scanned the area, taking in every detail. She knew she had to be quick, but also clever. The thrill of the game made her heart race with excitement.
"Ready or not, here I come," her grandmother called out, her voice filled with playful determination. Sophie giggled softly, knowing that the real fun was just beginning. The garden, with all its beauty and wonder, was the perfect backdrop for their game, and Sophie couldn't wait to see what adventures awaited her next.
As Sophie walked through the dense forest, she saw something strange that caught her eye. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before. It was behind a big, old oak tree that stood majestically in the middle of the forest, its branches stretching out like ancient arms. The tree was so big, it looked like a giant. Its trunk was thick and gnarled, with roots that seemed to dig deep into the earth, holding secrets of the past.
"What's that?" Sophie wondered aloud, her voice filled with curiosity and a hint of excitement.
As Sophie whispered to herself, her breath catching in her throat as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. She moved closer to the tree, her steps slow and cautious, as if she was afraid of disturbing the ancient giant. There, hidden behind the thick trunk, was a small wooden door. It was almost completely concealed by the tree's massive roots, as if the tree was protecting it. The door was painted green and looked very old. The paint was chipped and faded, giving it a weathered appearance that suggested it had been there for a very long time. Sophie had never seen it before. She had walked this path many times, but this door was new to her.
"I've never seen this door before!" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder.
Sophie was curious. She had to know what was behind that door. Her mind raced with possibilities, each one more fantastical than the last. She reached out and touched the door, her fingers trembling with anticipation. It felt cold and rough under her hand. The texture was unlike anything she had ever felt before, sending a shiver down her spine. Sophie glanced around to see if anyone was watching. The forest was silent, as if holding its breath, waiting to see what she would do next. Taking a deep breath, she prepared to open the door. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing in her ears. Slowly, she turned the handle. It creaked loudly, the sound breaking the silence of the forest. The door opened slowly, revealing a dark interior. Sophie peered inside, her eyes straining to see what lay beyond. With a mix of fear and excitement, she stepped through the door, entering the unknown. What awaited her on the other side was a mystery, but she was ready to find out. Sophie wanted to open the door, but it was locked.
"I wonder what's behind it,"
she thought. She looked around for a key. Suddenly, Sophie spotted something sparkling in the grass. It was a tiny key. It was made of gold and had a beautiful, shiny jewel on it. Sophie carefully picked up the key.
This is the key to the secret door.
It felt warm in her hand, as if it were happy to be found. Sophie ran back to the door and put the key in the lock. She turned the key and the door creaked open. Sophie peeked inside.
The garden inside is even more beautiful than the garden outside.
There were flowers in every color of the rainbow and sparkling fountains. The air was filled with the sweet songs of birds. Sophie stepped inside and the door closed gently behind her. She was all alone in the secret garden. As Sophie walked deeper into the garden, she noticed something magical. Tiny, glowing creatures were flying around the flowers.
The creatures are fairies.
They had delicate wings that shimmered in the sunlight. Each fairy glowed with a different color: pink, blue, green, and purple. Sophie had never seen anything so beautiful. She stood very still, watching the fairies as they flew around her. One of the fairies, a little pink one, flew up to Sophie.
Hello, welcome to our garden. We are the flower fairies.
Hello, my name is Sophie.
The flower fairies were kind and friendly. They told Sophie all about their magical garden. They showed her how they used their special fairy powers to help the flowers grow.
This is amazing!
Sophie spent the rest of the afternoon playing with the fairies. They laughed and sang songs together. Sophie even learned how to talk to the butterflies. As the sun began to set, it was time for Sophie to go. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, casting a warm glow over the magical garden. Sophie had spent the entire day exploring this enchanting place, meeting new friends and experiencing wonders she had never imagined. The flower fairies had shown her the beauty of their world, and now it was time to say goodbye. She hugged the flower fairies goodbye, feeling a mix of sadness and excitement. Each fairy had a unique charm, and Sophie had grown fond of them all. The fairies, with their delicate wings and sparkling eyes, had become her friends, and she knew she would miss them dearly, and promised to visit them again soon. She waved at them, her heart filled with the promise of future adventures. The fairies waved back, their tiny hands fluttering like the wings of butterflies. They knew Sophie would keep her promise, and they looked forward to her return. The pink fairy led Sophie back to the little wooden door. This door was the gateway between her world and the magical garden, a portal that held the secrets of the fairies. As they walked, the pink fairy whispered stories of the garden, tales of ancient trees and hidden treasures, making Sophie's heart race with excitement.
Remember to keep our garden a secret. The pink fairy's voice was soft but firm, a gentle reminder of the trust they had placed in Sophie. The garden's magic depended on its secrecy, and Sophie understood the importance of this promise.
I promise. Sophie's voice was filled with determination. She knew that keeping the garden a secret was a responsibility she was ready to bear. The bond she had formed with the fairies was precious, and she would protect it with all her heart.
She stepped back into her grandmother's garden, the familiar scent of roses and lavender welcoming her. The transition from the magical garden to her grandmother's garden was seamless, yet Sophie could feel the difference. The magic lingered in the air, a reminder of the wonders she had witnessed, and the door vanished behind her. It disappeared as if it had never existed, blending perfectly with the surroundings. Sophie knew that the door would reappear when the time was right, when the fairies called her back for another adventure. Sophie couldn't wait to come back and visit the flower fairies again. Her mind was already filled with plans for her next visit. She wondered what new secrets she would uncover, what new friends she would make, and what new adventures awaited her. She had made new friends, friends who had shown her the true meaning of magic and friendship. The fairies had taught her to see the world with wonder, to appreciate the beauty in the smallest things, and to believe in the impossible, and discovered a magical secret. This secret was not just about the garden, but about herself. Sophie had discovered her own courage, her own ability to believe in magic, and her own strength to keep promises. The secret garden was her very own special place. It was a place where dreams came true, where magic was real, and where she could be herself. Sophie knew that no matter where life took her, the secret garden would always be a part of her, a place she could return to whenever she needed to find her way.